Welcome to Afterthoughts, everybody, the podcast where we break down a movie that we watched this week. I am your host, Michael Dixon, and with me, as always, John Garcia.
Hey, what's going on, Dixon? You know, I crashed my car getting over here, but...
I'm so sorry to hear that.
It's okay because I fled the scene, so I've still got time to record this.
Okay, that's good to know. And Ryan King could not make it this week, but we have a special guest with us tonight, Mark Garcia, John's brother.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, John, while you were crashing your car, I was chasing down some young punks to get back a penis that I had on ice.
Oh my.
Okay, wow. Was it yours?
It was not mine. I don't know.
Are you a black market penis dealer?
Penis salesman?
What's going on here?
Well, I can neither confirm nor deny.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
We don't penis and tell.
Those are the magicians, right?
If you've seen the movie that we're talking about tonight, you may recognize these references that we are making here. We are going to be discussing 1114.
I'm on my way back from Benny's. I'm almost home. I wouldn't say I'm drunk.
Each event,
Holy shit, he's shot! No, man, his dick got...
each coincidence, each detail is part of your destiny.
Where's Sherry?
1114.
1114 is essentially a movie that would come to be if Memento and Crash had a baby, and that baby was raised in a Dollar General parking lot. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
I don't know what that means.
I think, you know, in rewatching this movie, what I really kind of got the feeling was like, man, they really probably wanted to cast this person in this role, but this is the person that they could afford. I felt kind of the same way about the script. I was like, man, this seems like it could be a super awesome like script, but there were so many movies that came like just a little bit before it that probably did it a lot better. So yeah, I had remembered this movie and thought, man, this might actually be good, but it's been 10 years since I saw it. And I was like, it was okay, but it's definitely a little more forgettable now that I've rewatched it.
Well, I know Dixon has a synopsis of this movie that is one line long, I believe.
I did. I wrote my own synopsis of this
So
movie.
why don't you tell us as well?
My synopsis is 1114 follows several groups of 30-year-old teenagers whose rampant acts of stupidity draw their paths together, resulting in 2 gruesome deaths and 1 crazy night.
Yes. Both accurate. The Dollar General baby and this one sentence wonder here describe exactly what the fuck this movie was.
Yeah.
Mark, why'd you have us watch this again?
Yeah, why did I waste 86 minutes watching this?
So, I recall I was, I think, a senior in college, and I read about the premise of this movie, and I was like, all right, this seems kind of interesting. It's really fascinating. Memento had come out, I think, a couple of years before, had like swept the nation by storm. Everybody, like, I remember Ebert and Roper were like, this is one of the best movies of the year. And I remember reading the synopsis for the film, and I was like, huh, that's kind of an interesting take. The writer and director had written it as, I guess, a school project or something and had submitted it, and it was accepted to a festival of some kind. And it's like, man, this is interesting. So then I heard nothing about the film, didn't follow it at all. And one day when I was in grad school, happened to see it on a shelf, and I was like, I'll pick it up and take it. And it had gotten rave reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. It's got a 92% score. And I was like, all right, let's see what happens. And I watched it. And at the time I remembered thinking, this is actually not bad. It's kind of cool. It's like all these really interesting plot lines, and it centers around the time 1114 for reasons I don't understand. And so that had been my memory of it, was like, I think this is like an interesting kind of take on the whole premise of how do you build out this plot line, you know, between Tarantino and Christopher Nolan kind of doing things with time and the way that they chose to edit their films. Not that they were the first to do that, but they're some of the more popular. Figured this might be a good film to kind of look at that. and rewatching it, it was not at all. You know, like this, it was literally like, John, I don't know about you, but I got like vibes of like small town life. And I'm like,
Yes.
this is like,
That's
I mean, it feels like John and I come from a small town where there was a senior in high school who held up at J.C. Penney's one year with an unloaded gun.
Oh, no.
And
he got some good slacks out of it.
and
though.
yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Well, and he let people leave the store if they promised not to call the police.
See, that's
and
the honor
first
system
thing they
right there.
did
Oh.
was they called the police. And so the whole time I'm watching this, I'm like, man, that's why it resonated with me. There was some weird, fucked up nostalgia I had for being in a small town, and here I am, right back with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I had y'all watch the movie, was to feel my pain. But more specifically, I had in my head, since it's been so long, remembered it being way better acted, way better directed than it actually turned out to be. And in watching it over, I believe I owe you both a serious apology. A lot of people ham up their lines. It's very clear you're working with an inexperienced director, which is displayed in the fact that he only has 2 movies on Rotten Tomatoes, and the other one has an 8% rating. So,
Yeah.
you know, he got a solid 50% between his 2 films.
Yeah, that's one way
100%
to look at it.
combined.
Yeah.
There you go. It has moments where there is, I believe, some interesting intrigue in, like, why the fuck is there a bowling ball in a cemetery
Mhm.
with a certain name on it? And why are certain events happening? Why are certain people like doing things? But because of the way I think they chose to cut it and film it, some of those moments lose a lot of their intrigue because you already saw
Yes.
them happen
Yep.
before.
Mhm.
Like if Patrick Swayze had been walking his dog and saw a book burning on the ground and then proceeded to burn this like shirt or whatever, and that's out of place and out of context from the rest of the film, you might be like, that's really fucked up and weird, but okay, whatever. And then if you got to the kids in the van, you'd be like, oh, okay, makes sense. They're throwing books out because they're just hooligans, running amok and doing stupid shit.
Yeah.
So,
The moment this movie started, I knew something was up because I didn't give a shit about any of the characters that come into frame and do
Uh-huh.
anything.
Yeah.
I was only laughing at certain parts of it. It felt kind of like, in a weird way, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang not like entirely, but just parts of it really didn't land, and it felt like it was trying to go for something, and I couldn't tell if I was supposed to laugh or it was serious or what. So immediately starting with like a dead body hitting a car, that's an exclamation point that you can either take fully off the deep end and make it hilarious, which when whoever the fuck that guy is who's in the movie for like 5 minutes is bouncing
He's
on
the kid from
fucking,
E.T.
Oh, the kid from E.T.?
Yeah.
Oh, it's Elliot?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, whenever Elliot is bouncing on E.T.'s corpse in the back of his trunk,
Yeah.
trying to like hide it, I was laughing out loud. And then when it proceeded to just be him caught up in something bigger, I was more frustrated. I also have this, like, I don't like the trope of multi-timeline that all takes place at the same time. Watching the same story unfold from different angles because it can be mishandled exactly as Mark's kind of identified, where you just undercut. To me, this felt like the wrong editor got a hold of a Rian Johnson film and immediately decided to edit out all of the subversions and made it way more, despite being nonlinear, way more linear in how it's structured out to tell you the mysteries. It would just hook me occasionally with, oh, that's fucking weird. I wonder why that is. And then immediately tell me why. And I would be like, oh, I guess that makes sense, I suppose. And so by the end of the movie, like an hour and 30 minutes went by. It was an hour and 30, right? It wasn't
It
longer.
was hour 26.
Okay. Whew. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. They were right under there. I just was like, what did we learn here, people? I don't know. Just, I guess, keep an eye on it. Probably the thing that I enjoyed most was recognizing Ben Foster. Because I was like, that dude is 1 year away from being in 2004's The Punisher. And that's all that I could see here. And of course, I enjoyed Colin Hanks playing Chet Hanks and the the biographical picture of Fred Durst. That was probably the other thing I enjoyed. But everything else, I didn't care. Felt like Patrick Swayze was totally underutilized in it.
Yeah, I wanted more Swayze and more Barbara Hershey.
Yeah. I couldn't. The cast was just, Jason Segel shows up. And I was like,
Yeah,
what the
skinny
fuck?
Jason
Yeah, I
Segel.
was like, holy shit, it's Jason Segel. And then he proceeds to fight a dude over a dick in an icebox. And that was about all he was doing. And I was like, all right, well, I guess we'll see him later when his career takes off.
classic Siegel.
But yeah, like, I don't remember too much from it. The score was kind of fucking weird. It like
Yeah.
alternated between being like a goofy kind of Coen Brothers vibe at a time. and then at other times being really somber and serious. And just all of the kind of accented points of characters doing things logically. I was like, why? Why would anybody do this? Except for that nostalgia of a small town where everybody's fucking stupid and nobody has anything better to do.
Yeah, but that also adds to reasons I didn't really believe either some of the motivations or some of the, I guess, consequences. Like for the cop to work in a small town and not know everybody who basically lives there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And for some of the people to do some of the stupid shit that they did and be like, oh, nobody's gonna know it was us. It's like, well, who the fuck is it going to be, really?
Yeah.
Sorry, but I don't want to step
Yeah.
on you, Dixon. I know
No,
you
you're
want to
good.
get in on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely a problem of the movie. It seems like it should have been set in a big city. So yeah, they seem like they didn't really know what they were going
They
for
didn't have
there.
enough of a cast for a big city, though.
Yeah, they like couldn't get enough extras, or they couldn't afford to shoot in LA or something. But yeah, I was just like kind of like you said, John. I was just like, what was the point of all this at the end? And I think, they're trying to take a story and cut it up into different pieces and make you put the pieces together to figure out what's going on, which in theory sounds interesting. Like I've seen movies do that before, and I'm usually not interested in it. It feels like a way to take a story that's not that interesting and move it around. And people think, oh, like this is intriguing now because I'm trying to fit all this together. But like once you get through it, it still needs to be an interesting story with characters that you can identify with. And this just wasn't that. I think part of the problem is that it centers around these two deaths. And the first death is in the opening scene. And the second death is like pretty early in the movie, like halfway or even earlier than that. And so then the whole second half of the movie, you're kind of piecing things together and discovering how these deaths came together, but you already know the punchline and you're just kind of getting the setup from there. And so I felt like it kind of gave away too much too early. And I thought if they ended on one of the deaths, maybe that would have put more of a punch to the end of it and wrapped things up in a fun way. But yeah, I was just kind of bored with it. There was a movie that came out in like 2007 called like Vantage Point, I think, that was a similar concept where there's like an assassination and they're showing the same thing from different characters. And I remember seeing the trailer for that when I was in high school. I'm like, oh, that sounds awesome. And I watched the movie and I was like, that was not good. Why wasn't that good? And I feel like a lot of times when movies just edit things out of order, it's just a gimmick and it doesn't really work very well. Like I just watched Irreversible by Gaspar Noé, and that was like a bad movie, and it was just everything was just edited backwards, and that's supposed to be inventive for some reason. I was like, okay, whatever. I do think that movies that take one incident and play it back through different characters' perspectives and show the scene in a different way based on how each character is interpreting it can be really interesting, like Rashomon or The Last Duel or something like that, where you can have a lot of interesting revelations about your characters based on how they see things, and you show the action playing out differently based on who is remembering what occurred. But when you're just showing everything kind of from a factual standpoint and kind of what each character was going through leading up to this event, I think it's hard to pull that off in a way that really pays off because it's just by nature repetitive, and you're
Yeah.
seeing that you have to play the same clips multiple times in order to kind of tie things together. And I just found myself kind of bored with it. And at the end, I was like, why did we do this?
I feel like there's, to an extent, that approach. It's good for indie direction because you get to shoot one thing and use it multiple times.
Yeah,
You can
yeah,
save yourself some effort. But if you really want to land it, you have to go like with the actual film medium and the fact that your audience is smart enough to know that other things are happening at the same time something is. Like you think about a Tarantino with Pulp Fiction, where Jules is like in so many different sequences and you're trying to place the timeline of where he's at, and none of those overlay, but you're able to know where the other characters might be, like Bruce Willis is, and those kinds of things. Like that keeps you engaged and interested in the story, and you're piecing the timeline together. Here, it's like every so often everything intersects. And it's really funny to think about this because I'm like, these storylines annoy me. The only time that I don't think I was annoyed by something like this, where there's overlap in the scenes, was the 4th season of Arrested Development.
Yeah.
And that like actually had some great moments where like they put the context back in for certain characters and why they're in these scenes earlier and whatever else. I just didn't mind in that way because it was funny to know their whole plot line behind this like 3-second interaction and then they're gone. But here, every character is so fucking despicable too. Like, I just don't care about anybody.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if you're going to do something like this, I feel like the problem with movies like this in this particular way is that it's just a gimmick as opposed to a legitimate device for storytelling. Like, I'm going to come back to Memento again, and whatever you may or may not think about Christopher Nolan, like one thing that movie has going for it with playing time reversed is every scene you see, you get a different perspective on your feelings for a specific character. Like, you might look at them and be like, okay, I feel this way about them. And then when you do the next rewind sequence, you're like, oh shit, I feel completely different about this person. And it's an effective way of telling that story in a way that you're not expecting. And again, to your point, John, it relies on the audience being smart enough to say, okay, I remember what happened here and what I've seen. And now this is completely changing my perspective on these characters. Whereas here, the actual mystery of what's going on is really not that interesting. It's like, okay, so she's getting $1,000 total, whoop-de fucking do, to leave with the guy who gets a dead body thrown in his car at the beginning of the movie. And then beyond that, like the whole time rewinding piece and it happening at 11:14. First of all, there's no significance there at all to my recollection of why they chose that time.
I think just both,
it's just when the body
deaths happen
hits,
at the same time.
Yeah. And I mean, from like even just like, why did they pick 11:14 out of anything? Like that was what I was trying to figure out. I'm like, is there some like meaning I'm missing here?
Should have been 11:11. That's when you make a wish.
Exactly. Well, and I'm gonna go into prog rock here,
or
okay?
midnight or something. Yeah,
because like Tool, as you know, John, I'm a huge fan of their music, but they have a song called Vigente Tres, which is Latin for 23, and 23 is supposed to be a number representing synchronicity, and they have tracks that you can actually lay together, and at the time mark of where the tracks actually overlay and synchronize, if you add all the numbers up, they add up to 23. And I was looking for something here.
It's going to go in that Jim Carrey movie.
Exactly. I was like looking for something here. I'm like, why the fuck did they pick 11:14? Like, why couldn't it have just been 11:12? And then it would have fucking worked. but yeah, I feel like looking at it again, it was all just a fucking gimmick. And then like half the characters do just really stupid shit that doesn't make any sense.
I would say that pretty much every character does really stupid shit that doesn't make any sense.
With the exception of Patrick Swayze, who does it for the wrong reasons, but it makes sense. He's trying to cover up for his daughter.
Why he's doing it. Yeah.
And also, I just want to add a side note. Whatever lettuce he has on his fucking sandwich, I need, because it is the crispest fucking lettuce in the history of lettuce.
The Foley artist is having a great day.
But yeah, it's just character motivations, character actions, all of it was a fucking mess the whole time.
Well, that's like, you bring up Memento, we bring up Pulp Fiction, these characters that like allow you to breathe in their dialogue, allow you to understand who they are. Like the whole Memento monologue about Sammy Jenkins, it's this emotional play. It really brings you in empathetically to this character's space, and like you're trying to understand more about it, and it's giving you that little bit by little bit, it's breaking down your barriers and your walls. Here, this is more like they start with a sad story about 2 murders, which is tragic. And then they slowly work their way back to like almost a nihilistic ending of like, it didn't fucking matter and these people were awful to begin with. So you shouldn't care. And that's why it feels, when you get to the end of the movie, you're like, why did I watch this? And why do I care? Because by the end of it, even like I would have taken if the guy who's drinking and gets pulled over was doing something way worse. Like not even scooping up this girl from a town to take her out somewhere, but he actually had other bodies in his trunk, or like there were other things that made him equally despicable besides just drinking and driving. It felt like there was such an undercut of how terrible of a person he was. And I even think there's a Black Mirror episode where they spend 40 minutes of the episode endearing you to one character and take 5 minutes to completely undercut who he is. And it's like, holy shit, this person's fucking awful. And everything I felt for him, I want to take back, but I felt it like realistically. This movie does none of that, and it does no emotional justice.
No.
So it's just like, what, was it for the, I don't know, it feels so cynical and kind of like it's daring me to, in like an early 2000s punk kind of way, to laugh at the pain of all of these teenagers and these people in this town. It's inviting me to mock them.
Yeah, I feel like it's maybe supposed to be a comedy, but it just doesn't really
Yes.
land as one. And
Yeah.
like you referenced Burn After Reading earlier. We're like, what did we learn here today? And a lot of Coen Brothers films have that nihilistic ending, but feels like there's a point to it. Like Burn After Reading is hilarious, and it's making fun of the government and these big bureaucratic institutions and law enforcement and all these things. And like there's a purpose behind what they're doing, even if there is a nihilistic message to it. And this is just like teenagers, they're stupid, right? Yeah, I guess. Also, like all the actors are between like 27 and 32. So
Yeah.
Like Hilary Swank, I don't buy that. She's not a teenager.
Also, this is like the first time I've ever seen Hilary Swank playing a teenager who's completely stupid in like every way possible. Like there's no common sense to her. There's nothing about her character that everybody's so two-dimensional in it. It's amazing to me how flat all these characters fall.
I feel like they cast Hilary Swank because they could get Hilary Swank, and then they're like, wait a minute, she can't play 18. What do we do?
Let's put braces
We'll give
on
her braces. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually would make the argument that I think the movie would have been made a lot better if they had instead spent the money on maybe only one big name. Like I would have kept Swayze and then have everybody else be no names, up and comings, and then probably invested much more money in hiring an actual director.
Yep.
And then probably sound design and music,
Maybe
like
a script supervisor.
Yeah, script supervisor for sure. Because
I think you need a better script too, because it's just like at the end of it, there's just nothing at its core. It just feels soulless, and you need somebody to come in there and write something interesting into these characters and some sort of purpose for you to care about these people.
Yeah, I mean, and if we go back to the last movie that y'all had me on, the old version of the cast for like Old Boy. Like you can make the argument that pretty much every character in that film, with the exception of the lead love interest, is pretty much a despicable character, but there are moments of humor and there are points where you're like, I actually kind of feel sympathetic towards this person's plight for reason X or Y.
Definitely.
Even if they're like really, really nefarious or disgusting reasons that they've done what they've done, like they still have that humanity aspect, and I think that that's what's missing here.
Yeah, I felt nothing for Ben Foster and his penis, or Mark Zuckerberg and Fred Durst and their plights in the van. I just didn't care. It was like weird too, because there were moments where it was like, we got to do this because he's our friend, and I was like, I can't tell if it's trying to do anything with these characters. I don't think it is. I don't think it fucking knows what it wants to do when it puts these different, because like having Rachel Lee Cook play a character who's playing two guys basically against each other while she's going to leave with this third guy. Even that, like, there was no dynamic between any of that. There was no triangle that actually surfaced. She like made it all up, so we never got to see any dynamics. And it just fell completely flat. One thing that I really thought was like the only kind of thing that was mildly interesting and was actively sabotaged by the movie itself was the ability to show time in any given scene. You could do so many clever cinematography things to keep you engaged and know what time you're at, where you are.
Yeah.
But every time they show a fucking clock, they have to zoom in on the fucking numbers.
Yeah, so
like you're getting your readers out and
yeah.
you're fucking just, what time is it again? And
You're
like,
kind of fucking stupid, aren't you? You don't know how to tell time on a digital clock.
Yeah.
Also, the way that time passes makes no sense whatsoever. Like they kept showing the clock and I'm like, oh, too many things need to happen between now and 11:14.
Yeah.
This isn't going to, how is this going to happen? And like, I think the most egregious one was when they do Rachel Lee Cook's segment and they show the clock and it's 10:54.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute. She goes and fucks a dude in the cemetery. The thing falls on his head and kills him. And then she like runs around, finds her, one of her boyfriends at a gas station. Her car won't start. She has to jump it and steal his shit and get the bowling ball and go and like all that stuff. Like, there's no way that would happen in 20 minutes. And like Patrick Swayze is even a less time to like go like drag a body across town and do all this stuff. And it's like, what? No, this is like, just why are you trying to act like these things only take 10 minutes to do this entire thing? Just give me an earlier time. Like,
it's fine to show like, the sun going down or something and having these different things happen.
Right,
and then
yeah.
it's dark and it's 11:14 or it's around that time. But it just, and also the flashback mechanic they use, anytime that it has to reset the clock, I was just like, I fucking get it. I know that you're taking me back to a different period because you told me the movie's called 11:14. What, you think we're going to go to fucking midnight? I don't think so.
Right. Well, and like to your point, both your points actually, at that point, like instead of doing the fucking flashback, that's more of a justification to just have everything happening in whatever fucking order you want to. But as long as you have a timekeeping device in the scene, let the audience sit there and like that would be an immediate reason for, hey, I want to do a rewatch to see when is this fucking happening and what's going on because I wasn't paying attention to the clock here.
You know what it feels like? This feels like a fucking film school project.
Yes,
it's
and
a
that's
film school project around. I want to fuck around with time. I want to see how I can show time in a movie, and
it's like 13-year-old Christopher Nolan made this movie.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think honestly, like in retrospect, like if I were to come back and give criticism to beyond just what we've already talked about, the things I would say is either A, you need to cut out some of the vignettes. Like you don't need 5 different vignettes for this. Take it down to 3. Like take it down to 3, you know, streamline it so that the characters can breathe, or you need to fucking lengthen it and make it a 2-hour movie. Give your characters some time because to your point, Dixon, like and you raised it too, John, like we don't have enough time with any of these characters to feel any kind of connection at all. Like outside of just Patrick Swayze being like, okay, that's a dad taking care of his daughter, who really is probably
and
fucking
he's Patrick Swayze. We love Patrick Swayze.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
you know.
We love Patrick Swayze, don't we, folks?
We love Roadhouse. Beautiful
Swayze
film.
for crazy. I heard they're remaking it with Gyllenhaal. It's not going to be as good.
But yeah, I mean, I was thinking on the way, like driving here, of the influences that probably, I mean, obviously the movie was written probably before these, but I don't know. And I was thinking like Memento, Donnie Darko, probably since it played with time in ways that other movies hadn't at the time. Run Lola Run, which I think might have come out the same year.
I haven't seen that. I've heard good things.
It's great. Like, and it does it the right way. It is essentially kind of like a precursor to Russian Doll, I think is the best way to pitch that movie.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah. So it's just a repeat over. And now that I'm thinking
Groundhog Day scenario.
Exactly. Like, fuck, why didn't I just suggest Run Lola Run? But here we are. But yeah, like, and then Final Destination, to your point of it being like more nihilistic and just like characters we don't care about and bad things happening to them, like the Final Destination movies were really big around this time.
Yeah.
And so I think that there were some influences in like the time, not justifying why it sucks so badly, but I think that all kind of influenced what movie we got here.
As you're talking about that, 2 things come to mind. One is Ryan was talking about in some previous episode, I think it was a recommend or refute, kabuki theater, just referencing the like way that Japanese theater expresses who a person is. I mean, Shakespeare does it too, with like the fool and having certain characters dress a certain way. This movie attempts to do that because Ben Foster wears a shirt that says legalize crime.
Yep.
and fucking Colin Hanks playing Fred Durst. Obviously he has like that kind of like aesthetic of a bro, and having Hilary Swank with braces, it establishes that she's innocent in a way. And it tries to communicate all of that and use that to fill in the characters, and none of it works because it still just doesn't land. If this was Final Destination, which I've only seen like 2 of those movies, those are cathartic in a way that feels like it's boomer exploitation. Like it's just targeted at murdering millennials, and like no matter what, they're gonna fucking die. This in the same way, like on that vibe, feels like it's like, hey, look at how fucking awful the kids are. You know how you think the kids are awful? They really are. Check them out. And then watch them all die. And then Patrick Swayze. But Patrick Swayze's also like burying a body. Like, why not make him, you know, the only pristine character in some way?
I will say that the Swayze like section, I think, was the best one.
Yes.
And there's really the only one where I was like concerned about what was going on to the characters. And because Swayze's like, oh shit, like he thinks his daughter has killed this guy. And, you know, does not know that they were just casually fucking against a tombstone that had a cracked head on it that happened to fall on his head. And he was like, because like when she leaves, he's like, if he hits you one more time, I'm going to fucking kill him. And so like he knows that there's been some domestic violence there. And, you know, he's like, oh, he gave her no option. She just had to do what she had to do. All right, I'm not going to let you go to jail, sweetie. And like, you know, taking the body, trying to figure out what he can do with it. And, you know, there's like the scenes of like the car driving by, he's trying to duck out of the way, and then like, you know, this is coming because you've seen the opening scene of the movie where the body falls into E.T. boy's car. But, when it does happen, it's still funny. Like, Swayze plays it well. He's like, oh, fuck. Like, also, the idea that you should just throw it off of the overpass onto the highway, that seems dumb. Like, go bury it in the woods, dude. Like, you're gonna live on this massive property with all these trees. But anyway, he made that dumb decision. I did laugh at that. I thought that paid off pretty well. And then the movie kind of falls off a cliff from there, I think.
I have notes about how this movie could have been funnier than it was. Similar to Cocaine Bear, obviously. But Swayze in particular, I think, would have been hilarious because he comes across the body at the cemetery with, what? Did Rachel Lee Cook really put this dude's dick away? I fucking doubt it. Yeah. So, like, Swayze wants to move the body, but he's like, oh, I don't fucking want to touch. No. And he's like trying to like go in and zip up the jeans, but not touch the dick and like get around it. Would have been hilarious. And then when he locks his keys in his car, like right outside the church, like, oh, Father, you're here for, was midnight mass tonight or what's going on? Like trying to talk his way out of that. Those would have been like really funny scenes. And instead it's all like, no, we got to fucking move this. We got to get you to the bridge because we have to beat the 11:14 timeline.
Yeah, they introduce him at like 10:59 and it's like he's got to find the body and drag it all the way over to the bridge in 15 minutes.
Let's get him over there.
His whole storyline was also one of those where I was like, okay, this is like, there's no way that this is all happening in this amount of time.
Yeah, no possible way.
But to your point, Dixon, like I do think it was the best balance between the tragedy and comedy. Watching this movie actually and try like seeing it try and fail to balance tragedy and comedy made me actually think, man, I really fucking should have suggested we watch Melinda and Melinda, but that will be for another time. Woody Allen film, great movie if you haven't seen it.
I haven't seen that,
but yeah,
I've seen lots of Woody Allen films, but I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, but it was one of those again, and I think it's all coming back to the same thing. We're gonna keep harping on this because this movie sucks so bad, and that's just the fact that like none of the characters have a moment to breathe. Like you don't like it is really two-dimensional because the director is so fixated on the time frame having to work and line up that there's just no amount of time that allows these characters to have any moments where there's redeeming qualities, or even if they're not going to be redeeming qualities, at least more input into why they are the way that they are.
Well, you think about like when Colin Hanks is screaming at Ben Foster, that's a moment to introduce some empathy to your characters that would actually probably work. But instead you turn your audience away from him because he's like,
if you hadn't been pissing out the goddamn window, none of this would have happened.
Guys, calm down.
No, you stay out of this, Tim. Now listen, I'm not going to jail over your little dick. So you can either say I didn't hit you, or you can bleed to death for all I care. Say it!
You didn't hit me.
And in that moment, I was like, man, nobody in this van. I don't like anybody in this van. I wish they would all just not wear their seatbelts, fucking drive fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't care. And that's like a total turnaround from Ben Foster a year later in The Punisher when I give a shit about him. And he's being tortured, but he won't give up the secrets. I'm like, yeah, way to go, Ben Foster.
We should talk about the dick scene. Because
do we need to talk about the dick scene?
We need to talk about the dick scene. Yeah.
He's going to talk about the dick scene, everybody.
Yeah, just to like clarify for everyone, we're not talking about a specific character being a dick when we refer to the dick scene. We're talking about a literal dick.
Yes, we're talking about hot dog.
Yes.
That gets promptly circumcised a bit too much.
So it's amazing to me that there is a scene where a guy's dick comes off of his body and passes around between multiple people, and people are freaking out trying to find it and get it back into the hospital, and it's just not amusing at all. Yeah. I'm like, how did they fail on this premise so badly? It just doesn't. It's pretty wild. And like, first of all, we got to talk about the physics of this because it makes no sense.
Yeah,
Ben Foster has like propped himself up against the side of this massive van that Colin Hanks is driving, and he's peeing out the window. And Colin Hanks is very mad, and the window is not like open all the way; it's like cracked a little bit. Like there's plenty of space there.
Yeah.
And Colin Hanks is turning around and yelling at him, and then runs into Rachel Lee Cook, and thus the van has to stop very quickly. And Ben Foster flies into the front of the van, and his dick just comes off.
The window supposedly slams shut on his dick, which then he flies forward and then flops back. That's supposed to be what happened.
Why would I don't like that? Just doesn't make any sense to me that the window would have moved forward at all. First of all, if the window was loose or something, you wouldn't think it would have enough force in that to actually dislodge the man's penis.
You know, it would have made more sense.
I don't know.
The
I've
doors,
not been in that situation.
they open the sliding door and hey, the lock has a little, because they show some scenes where they open that door and have like their friend run into the car.
Yeah. Oh, those sliding van doors are vicious, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, oh, fuck this door. Like, why can't you get your fucking van fixed, Colin Hanks? Like, set it up and then have that happen. But anyway, that doesn't matter because Ben Foster gets his dick chopped off by that whole circumstance.
But see, it does matter, John, because I pulled out a whiteboard and attempted to draw yesterday, like physics based, to Dixon's point. Like I was like, okay, I want to do the math here and say, how close does his crotch have to be to where when they crash the van, he's going to fly forward enough and still be in that, I guess,
like why
guillotine range where it could sever it.
You're neglecting the fact that he could have a 15-inch penis, clearly, but he doesn't.
Oh, he doesn't. They make that very clear.
Unless it was just the tip.
It was. It's actually 11-14 in size.
If he's like the van is coming to a huge stop, he's flying forward. His dick is attached to his body. You think it would just slip out the window with the rest of him? And,
God, I wish Mythbusters was still around.
I know.
Just call him up.
That would be the best Mythbusters.
Put the prosthetic on that Mark Wahlberg wore in Boogie Nights, and let's see what happens.
On this episode of Dick Busters. Yeah, that whole, like, in watching it in retrospect, I'm like, okay, that's completely unbelievable. It's clearly just a plot point for plot point's sake.
Yeah.
I mean, just let's just ramp up the set phasers to MacGuffin. Okay.
Yes, that's absolutely what it would be. You know what I would have loved to have seen? I would have actually believed this scene more if it was a stage play. I know we've talked about this before in stage play. But like, imagine a little cardboard van going along the stage and there's a guy who's propped up on it holding himself. And they're like, you shouldn't be doing that. And the Colin Hanks character, obviously from a community college, is playing this. And then like they're like, oh no. And they hit and the cardboard van shakes and suddenly the door slides closed with somebody in a black garb. And you get ribbons of red blood, like fucking
that
thrown
would be
across.
Funny
It'd be fucking
play.
hilarious.
Yeah.
In a movie, it's just unbelievable and stupid. Well, but in a stage play, sure.
And I mean, a much more believable portion to that whole sequence would have been one of them actually getting fucking shot. Because going to the hospital with a fucking gunshot wound, still tying you to the hit and run, would have been a reasonable way to tie up that whole sequence.
But then we don't get the Jason Segel scene.
Yes,
it's true.
But also, so here's where my like Ryan Johnson edited by the wrong person comparison comes in.
Okay.
They play for a second with the fact that Ben Foster might be shot. They're like, oh my God, he's shot. He's bleeding, whatever. Just cut it right when the fucking van drives away and you have the gunshots going. Cut that. Cut to Ben Foster in a hospital. And everybody's filling out forms and you're getting this. And it's way later in the movie too. And they're like, why are you here exactly? And he's like, he was shot. And they're like playing it up like that. And then eventually reveal, wait, he wasn't shot at all. His dick is just shot off, or like his dick was clipped off, shot off, whatever it was. Just play that. I think even doing like clipped off is still fine and be like, that's the most unbelievable thing, because then you could have a doctor come in and be like, well, how the fuck did that happen? You'd have to be really close to a van's window if that was going to be it. Like, it's just like going through how incredulous, and you lampshade it. It would be fucking great. And then you could have a whole discussion with Jason Segel where he fights with his friend. That was the other thing I thought it was going to lead to, was the dick was going to fall out of the ice, and instead of his friend grabbing it, his friend, the fucking EMTs would give him a hard time and be like, dude, that was like our only fucking bucket of ice. Like, we don't have any more fucking ice. And he's like, well, how do we keep the dick so we can reattach it? Like, you got to put it in your mouth now, bro. Like, this is what you got to do. Like, do something like that. Because I hear, like, when you lose a thumb, if you put it in your mouth, it's supposed to keep it fresh.
Oh, really?
It's actually a thing that actually will work. So yeah, like, play that up. And then you can do whatever you want to. You can do commentary on like homophobia, whatever that fucking thing, like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang did. Similar kind of thing. Not used at all. Doesn't matter. It's all about, I'm going to grab a dick and run with it. Here's your dick, friend. Throw it in your face. There you go. Done. I just listed out like way better things. Somebody remake this movie with all my suggestions. I will watch it.
I was going to say earlier, but I wanted to wait till this moment, that I look forward to the 3-hour Bollywood adaptation to this movie.
When they dance when the dick comes off. Yeah. But that's the dick scenario. I don't know. Is that what it's called? The dick situation, the dick incident?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
The Dixident. I don't know. It's getting dangerously close to Dixon.
Yeah,
I want to walk it back from that.
Yeah, I again just need to apologize. I feel like in retrospect, I mean, the I guess the benefit of it is this is making for a really fun episode where we can just bash on this movie to no end. And talk about how, we can put our director's hats on and say, this is how I would have done it if I would have done it, which is great. On the other hand, like there's so many better movies that I just didn't have at the forefront of my mind because dad brain, that if given like another opportunity, I would have brought in because I'm like, now that I'm thinking about it, this is a way better movie than this.
Well, you blew your chance. You're never coming back.
Yeah, I know. This is it.
You
I'm done.
Burned all the bridges.
Burned all the bridges. Fuck you guys. I did this on purpose.
Can't wait until my nephew's old enough to show him 11-14.
You're not going to do it under my roof.
Yeah. I'll hype it up. I'll be like, hey, nephew, your dad really loves this movie. Let's fucking check it out.
Why do you guys think this movie is well reviewed? I'm confused by that. Like, it's got, 92 on Rotten Tomatoes. It has a 65 Metascore.
Have a 92. It's a critic thing.
I mean, so I think that what it is again, I think if you take it in context, this was released in 2003. So
critics were terrible back then.
Well, in that period as well, like Identity was a big movie. Memento, like any movie that had a twist or was atypical from your traditional like summer blockbuster movie, was immediately heralded as this fucking godsend of a movie. And it was like, oh, this is the most amazing thing since sliced bread. You'll never see like the end of this coming. And I think that's why, like, to that extent, like my memory is, oh, this was an actual like a really fun, well-directed, good movie. And now that I've seen more and I've seen like I've had a taste of, no, it really isn't. Like these are like I hadn't seen Old Boy when I had seen this movie. I hadn't seen like Run Lola Run when I had seen this movie. I hadn't seen like Pan's Labyrinth by the time I had seen this movie. So there was a lot that I hadn't seen when I saw this, and as a result, I think that I was like, okay, this like is atypical from what you would see in most Hollywood films, and that's why I think Dixon it might have that higher review. But now, and this happens in video games a lot too. I've noticed is there are a lot of critics that are saying, hey, maybe we should actually pull video games from like these older times, bring them up now to current day and re-review them and see if we still feel the same way or if it's that rose-colored glasses kind of feel that we have for them. Because this is not one of those films that ages well. Like Citizen Kane, that's a movie that ages fucking well. Even if you don't fully understand like the cinematography and the things that movie does differently than what were done at the time, you can still appreciate it for what it is.
Yep.
But this is not one of those movies that ages well. I mean, it ages like, milk.
That's like I've seen a number of Siskel and Ebert from like 80s reviews of like science fiction schlock that I watch that I love. And they'll be like, oh, this was great. I had a fun time. It's fantastic. And I go and watch it. And I'm like, I understand why you had a fun time and why it's great. But I also understand that anybody now watching this would have the Blade Runner problem where you're like, this is fucking boring or it's just cheap and hokey. It doesn't fucking matter anymore. At the time, it feels novel because you're in the boom of something. You're in like all the Star Wars clones feel novel because it's like in the boom of this science fantasy. And then here you have, the Memento boom, this like timelines and non-linear shit. And everybody's like, oh, we want all of that. Anything that does that is really cool and innovative. It's doing something really interesting. And I feel like that plagues the early 2000s. There's a lot of that. It's also a lot of like whatever Crash is. It just you haven't seen it, but
I haven't. No.
I remember seeing Crash and thinking that movie's fucking great. And I remember watching.
Are we talking about
movie.
the Oscar winner or the
Yes.
Cronenberg?
Talking about the Oscar winner, not the Cronenberg, because the Cronenberg deserves accolades. It's in Criterion.
That one's good. I haven't seen either of them, but yeah.
One of them's in Criterion, and it's the Cronenberg.
Yeah, I think one of my colleagues in grad school called Crash the year it was released a back to school special.
It
And I
really
think
is.
that-
It is. Yeah.
That applies. I mean, it is like peak Hollywood attempting to appear quote unquote woke in all that it does. And it seems, I mean, it every emotional beat in that movie, you can just tie to the score. it's not actually as emotional
Yeah.
as it needs to be. It's just tied to the score.
It's calculated. It's really well calculated.
Yeah.
And also I've learned to not like Sandra Bullock. I don't think I ever liked her subconsciously, but I also now actively know why I don't like her acting and her performances. And it's mostly because I'm sure she's capable of acting really well, but in most of the movies she's directed in, it's literally, you just need to be white lady concerned. And that's like all that she's ever been told.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, this movie, yeah, just overblown. And yeah, it does still have a 90% Rotten Tomatoes from the critics. They have not gone back. Nobody's gone back. So that's the ticket, everybody. Dixon, you're an official critic now. I think that you should probably write an article about this movie and start balancing out the metrics.
I actually tried to submit articles to Rotten Tomatoes and they have not accepted them. So.
Well, we're going to get you an official website. We're going to get you a partnership. We'll fucking figure out what we need.
Yeah, I think, something that could be fun for you, Dixon, would be to pull like Run Lola Run and some of the movies from this time to put them up to comparison to 1114 to say, this is why this movie is dog shit and you should not be like swayed by its Rotten Tomatoes score, because it's always been dog shit. It's just that at that time people really liked watching dog shit.
People really like dog shit
on a huge screen. Like,
yeah.
It really feels like a guy who watched Pulp Fiction when he was 13 and then was old enough to direct a movie and was like, I need to do that. But like,
yeah, exactly to that point. Any fucking movie that has a woman walking across a goddamn street in boots while you play fucking Nancy Sinatra.
Yep.
Like, it's fucking done. It's like, okay, so you went and bought this fucking like indie movie playbook from the same fucking bookstore that everybody else has, and you think you're being fucking edgy and modern with it.
Well, you know what it was that was where all the budget went.
Yes, exactly.
To licensing
Nancy fucking Sinatra.
Because I don't remember any other licensed music anywhere else in this movie. I just remember nature footage of Komodo dragons that Patrick Swayze was watching as he ate a sandwich.
Yes. Yeah. It's like, and I just remember feeling 5 minutes into the movie, God damn, this is overacted. It's fucking hammed up. What have I fucking done to them?
And I remember thinking 5 minutes into that movie, does my brother like this? Is he really? That couldn't be.
Yeah. I was like, God damn, any notoriety I have with this group of individuals is fucking shot
Your
from this point
reputation
on.
is completely have to burn.
They're going to be like, well, he recommended Old Boy, so he seems great there, but fuck him because he recommended 1114.
Honestly, when you sent it to me, I never heard of it, and I just looked up the description on IMDb, and I was like, oh no. That sounds bad.
And I almost told John, I was like, okay, you and Dixon don't read the description, just go in eyes blind. And then after I watched it, I'm like, thank God I didn't send that fucking text. So they would have been like, fuck him. What the fuck is he talking about here?
It's the next Scorsese. Don't even read the description, just go in.
Exactly. Like, and in my head, like I will say, I was like toying with the ideas. I was like, all right, should I go the Pinocchio route for Guillermo del Toro? I haven't seen the new animated Pinocchio. It won an Oscar. Like, you could go the animated route.
Yeah.
I was like, I could go the Evil Dead route. I know Dixon hasn't seen it. John told me, but I didn't know at the time. I was like, man, that would be a great one to do. And I fucking chose 1114, so fuck me.
You chose the middle of the road, literally and figuratively.
Yeah. Hey, 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, man. Total score. Never asked to direct another movie since.
Yeah.
So
I do want to briefly talk about Barbara Hershey, because I think she is good in the movie. And I haven't seen her in a ton of stuff, but she's the lead in Boxcar Bertha, and she's also Mary Magdalene in The Last Temptation of Christ. So Scorsese has used her a couple times, and I always like her in those movies when I've seen her. And I thought she was a really interesting character in this movie that could have created a lot more chaos than she was allowed to. Like,
absolutely.
She's the concerned, community organizer lady who like is friends with the chief of police
She's
and knows
the Karen
everybody
of
in
this
town. Yeah, exactly. She's like a raging Karen and is always trying to meddle in everything. And that plays really well in the opening sequence when, the body falls on E.T. Boy's car and she, drives up, next to him, and she's like, oh, she just assumes it was that he ran into a deer, and she's like, oh, I'll call the cops. He's like, oh no, don't do that, because there's a human body next to his car, and he's freaking out, and he's like, no, don't do that. I already called them. She's like, oh no, it's no problem. The chief's a friend. It'll escalate it. They'll get here quicker. And just I feel like there were opportunities for her to just stumble upon more things and to create more problems and chaos that would have been really fun. And she was great in that opening sequence. And then I think even it was the same opening sequence when that guy ends up wandering up to her place by accident, and she's like, what, you killed my daughter? And she starts freaking out at him. And it turns out it was the other death. But I was just like, man, like that could have been the movie could have been so much better if she had come up more often than she did.
It squandered that moment for me to play her up as being a very naive and dumb character who is just like wholesome. It's a similar thing to like Frank. If Frank and her had been just the object of purity in this movie.
Wait, Frank
is Patrick Swayze. I didn't mean to say the character.
Is that his character's name?
That's his character's name.
Oh my God.
The only reason I remember is because the Punisher's name is Frank Castle, so obviously Ben Foster.
John, get off the Punisher horse.
I can't. It's a great movie.
John, stop trying to make Punisher happen.
But yeah, like if her and Patrick Swayze had been the object of purity in this, where they're both trying to do right, but they consistently lead to things being done wrong, where she's like, oh, well, we got to go find whoever like hit my daughter. And she brings that dude along in some way that would have been like wacky, or she found Patrick Swayze trying to put out that fire and consistently started leading to him like panicking and trying to cover it up more. And it pushed him to something. Like she could have been a force of chaos in her positivity, and it would have been hilarious.
Like that, I wanted more of her in everything. I kept like, where is she going to come into these other scenes? And she just, they never brought her back in. And also, she and Patrick Swayze are by far the most interesting characters in the movie, and they're a married couple, and we never see them interact. I was like, why don't we get to see their relationship at all? Like, they just have these separate storylines. They don't really ever talk to each other.
Literally, it's just she picks him up when he's kicking the shirt into the sewer.
Yep.
And then
that's it.
Drives him home, and then he's off to, take care of the rest of whatever he's going to take care of, and that's it.
It would have been really funny if she told him, well, I called the sheriff, and he's like, you did what? And thinks that the sheriff's going to find that body and think that it was him. And he's like, and he's just trying to tell her a lie to get her to take him to wherever the scene is so he can cover up the evidence. Would have been way funnier. Would have been great. No, none of that is what's going to happen in this movie.
No. So let me ask you this, John. Would you pay for a ticket to go see it in theaters if the remake is written and directed by Tommy Wiseau?
No,
yes.
no, I wouldn't do that. I don't think I would do. I'm not going to pay for anything that Tommy Wiseau does now because he's just chasing that cloud at this point, trying to like recreate the lightning in a bottle that was The Room. However, if Tommy Wiseau took my notes and said he was going to make it, I would maybe go see it just to see him butcher my notes because he would throw them all out for some other shit. And I'd be curious what it was.
Well,
do you think he would introduce football into the movie somehow?
Probably. I mean, clearly Colin Hanks plays football. So
yes.
There's going to be some kind of football thing there.
And the reason I legitimately ask that is in like listening to our like assessment of it and thinking about the motivations of the characters, the two-dimensionality, like every one of these fucking characters almost to a degree mimics the characters he wrote in The Fucking Room. Like Lisa is Rachel E. Cook's character.
Oh my God. You're blowing my fucking
mind
right
like
now.
literally it is. And then like the guy driving.
Who's the mother-in-law that definitely has cancer?
That would be let's see.
Is that not Boxbar Bertha?
Yeah, I guess that would be Barbara Hershey. Yeah.
Barbara Hershey. And then I assume like Patrick Swayze is Chris R, the gangster. Just because he's fucking Patrick Swayze.
Yeah.
But I mean, it really is one of those things where, like, in retrospect, I'm like, Jesus, these characters could be straight out of a fucking Wiseau film. Like, the way that they're written, the way they behave, like, nothing they fucking do makes any sense. And we're never given any moment to really, like, get to know them. Like, you raise a great point, Dixon. Like, if we even just got for 10 minutes to see the relationship with the two parents,
Yeah.
that would have made a portion of this movie worth watching and sitting through. I'd be like,
Mhm.
you know what? Every other part of this movie is fucking shit, but that was really awesome. Like,
And it would have added to Rachel Lee Cook's character as well if we get more of an idea of the home that she's coming from.
Yeah.
yep, exactly.
I would pay to see Ben Foster be Denny. I would pay. It's just, he's the right kind of annoying. Am I right, Dixon?
He is, yeah. There was not near enough ass in this movie for it to be a Tommy Wiseau
It's
project.
true.
It's true.
They needed more ass in the cemetery.
Which, by the way, who the fuck fucks in a cemetery of all fucking places?
They're
Again,
boning on the bones, man. I
Yeah,
don't know what to
I
say. Which, that scene, despite me knowing what was going to happen, got a laugh out of me. I won't lie. It was just funny to see the comeuppance of it all. And, yeah, thank you. And Rachel Lee Cook be like, "Did you do it?"
Did you come?
And then look down and see his fucking smashed face.
I would have liked to have seen the scene where the head actually broke off of the gravestone and somebody's like, "Oh, what do I do?" And just kind of like carefully places it back on, trying to balance it.
I would have loved if Patrick Swayze tried to weaken it, Bernie's the body in front of the sheriff or some shit. Just me and my buddy, and he's only got like a hat on the top of his head or some shit. Be great.
Well, and again, to that whole sequence, like, Rachel Lee Cook goes and gets the bowling ball, but then drops it and never actually places it on the guy's head so that blood will get on the bowling ball, making it seem as though like, and so like there could have been this whole comedic aspect to Patrick Swayze attempting to reattach the fucking gravestone head and then carefully place the bowling ball on the guy's head so that his daughter wouldn't be framed for that. And we got none of that, and that just deprived me of laughs and giggles in the midst of all this tragedy.
Also, I just real quick want to talk about how Elliot from E.T. He's in the movie for like 10 minutes. I guess he just cost that extra amount when you get that level of star
No, there's no
power.
way that like 34-year-old Elliot was demanding big money at this point. Right? Like,
well, you tell me why they only used him for 10 minutes at most.
because the character was a nothing character.
I suppose.
Yeah.
But like even that was just like there's so much that could have been done with him that was literally just they set him up at the very beginning like we should give a shit about anything he does, because at the very end they go out on the exact same dialogue he was opening with. They bookend it. As George Lucas would say, it's like poetry. It rhymes. And it just fucking is one of those things where you're like, okay, why do I care about him at all? Why do I care that he's not been drinking or any? It just closes the story, but it doesn't give us any like, oh fuck, this character was shitty all along. We opened the movie on him drinking and fucking driving.
Yeah.
Yep.
We already know he's permissible to terrible things. So it's just like, all right, I guess, yeah, sure, that fucking did happen. But if the movie had been, let's say he's interspliced in between, anytime that the cop shows up, he's in the cop car trying to negotiate in a different way. He's like bidding for his life in some fucking fashion. And at the very end, we get the beginning sequence where he's riding into town and talking about, oh yeah, I'm going to see you, whatever. We just know that he's a shitty person and he's done something shitty. Would have made it way more justified. Would have been more enjoyable. Would have been fun.
My penis would be in my pants right now and not my fucking hand.
But this movie can't help itself. It has to tattle on what's going to happen. It has to fucking spoil any punchline that would go.
It's also like one of the worst characters is the boyfriend trying to get money for the abortion, like going to rob the gas station that he works at. And just like the movie spends so much time on that guy.
Yeah.
And I just didn't give a shit about anything that he had to deal with. And
Also, doesn't the movie violate its own rules at one point? Because usually it sticks with one person for the time. And we were in Hilary Swank mode whenever he comes in. But then we follow him into the icebox room for just a little bit.
But then it cuts away and
Then
she's
it cuts to
fucking
her
with the
and she's
gun.
fucking with the gun. But
Yeah.
like, why even do that if you're going to show us later they're in there intimately kissing and talking about, if not
I
to
guess
try
because
to...
she shot into it, so that we needed to know that they were in there. But
Just
I
watching them
don't
go
know.
in and her be like, all right, and just waiting and wondering what they're going to do. Then showing them talk and have that whole discussion. That's the Alfred Hitchcock ticking time bomb. You know the gun's there. The audience is fucking well aware of the timeline here. But the movie itself just had to show you. It had to be like, they're back there, remember? Now Hilary Swank's going to be fucking stupid and swirl the gun around on her finger and pull the hammer back, which it's like, you've never handled a gun. You've also established you're a goody two shoes. Why do you want to be Steven Seagal or Chuck Norris now? Why even try?
Who doesn't want to be Steven Seagal, John?
Yeah, who doesn't want
Not
to
only
know?
that, she spills the fucking bullets at one point in time where she could have just then played around with the fucking gun while it's unloaded.
I thought she was trying to get the bullets out and was going to pocket the bullets and give the guy the gun back
Yeah.
unloaded. And like, nope, she's going to put him back in and keep fucking around with the gun.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, like, literally the only pieces of the whole thing that were like a mystery were like I originally thought, okay, it was Hillary Swank who called in the cop report that identified him, and she's so stupid that she said like exactly what he looks like. But no, it was Rachel Lee Cook who did it eventually. And then, it's so nice of Rachel Lee Cook to actually leave him his keys. Oh wait, no, she went to get the bowling ball. That's where it came from. And it reveals that in the end in her vignette. But yeah, it was just. I think the way to describe this movie is just fucking insulting to the audience. Like,
You know what this movie is? And I referenced George Lucas just a few minutes ago. It's a George Lucas affair to me, where it tries to over-explain every fucking detail in it. It's telling you about all the tiny things that cause these other happenstances. And it has to put it in your face and show you that this is why it happened. When it could just trust that you could make that connection yourself. You could assume certain things and that would play with it, or it could introduce some ambiguity, and
this movie assumes a very low IQ level of its audience.
What I really would be interested in seeing, because it has so many big stars, is seeing if there is anywhere online where the original submission from the director is of the script versus what happened after the whatever studio produced it got a hold of it and decided to provide notes. Yeah. Because we may be faulting the writer-director for this, but it might actually be that he was just dealt.
It could easily be studio notes, because I'm sure that somebody saw, well, we want Memento, but we don't want to fucking, audiences are too dumb to understand Memento. Let's just edit it this way.
Yeah.
You're like, no, I don't know about that. You're right, Mark. You're right. We are assuming a lot here with this.
But yeah, you know what? Fuck you guys.
Fuck the writer-director. I don't care. It's a bad movie.
You know what? But this
He's
movie,
the most
fuck
responsible person.
That's right. Fuck Chet Hanks. Anyways.
Any other thoughts on this wonderful piece of cinema that we have been breaking down here?
I'm gonna go to Half Price Books and buy the DVD. Wait, do you still have the DVD, Mark?
I do.
Does it have special features? I want to know.
I don't know, but if we would like to recreate the Office Space sequence of the copy slash fax
we all beat
machine,
it to death with a baseball bat,
then we can totally fucking
nice.
do that.
I dig that.
I actually did that once in college. My neighbors were just like beating the shit out of a printer in my driveway. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? They're like, have you seen Office Space? I was like, yeah. They're like, here, take this pole and hit this printer. Fuck yeah.
I thought it was going to be more like you stepped out on your fucking like the porch or whatever. And you're like, hey, you better save some for me. We can get in there.
My final thought is, I wish I could rewind time and pick a different fucking movie for this goddamn podcast.
You can only rewind to 1051.
Exactly. God damn it. Well, at least you'll learn about Komodo dragons before we have to watch this abysmal film again.
The Komodo dragon eats teenagers whole. Sometimes it preys on Chet Hanks. Yeah.
Mark, would you recommend this movie?
I would absolutely not recommend it. Not even to people I hate.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow, you would spare.
I would spare my enemies. It is not aged well. I would, if I could build a time traveling device before I rewound time so we could watch a different movie, I would go back in time to 2000 and I want to say 2007, and I would slap Mark, who bought this movie and thought it was great, in the face and say, "You're
Wait, but have you
stupid.
seen Time Cop? If you touch yourself in the past, then you like disintegrate and you kill all yourselves.
Oh,
Well, have you seen
Yeah.
Trancers? Because that's not the case.
Well, no, Time Cop is a definitive time travel movie. Obviously.
Wait, I saw a similar
Dixon,
movie.
put the knife away.
The one I saw was called Time Cock, and a guy goes back in time, and when he touches himself, something else happens. Okay.
Wait.
Wait, does Ben Foster's dick go back in time when it flies out the window? Is it?
I need to know where you procured this from for science.
The same place I procured Poop Dreams and a Harry Potter and the Prostitute of Alcatraz.
It wasn't Azkaban?
No, it was not Azkaban.
So disappointing. Oh my god. Okay, so yeah, you wouldn't recommend this.
I would refute this fucking movie so hard. I haven't even seen Old Boy with like the Americanized the Spike Lee
version.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, but I would refute this one before I would refute that one.
I thought you were gonna be like, I would recommend that over this.
At least Spike Lee
probably
made that,
would,
right?
yeah,
Like it has
exactly.
to have some good things
Some
in
merits
it,
there,
right?
yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
Why not?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, this is just it's a joyless husk of what cinema should be.
That's a beautiful way to put
wow. John, would you recommend this movie?
it. You know, I watched a lot of schlock in my day. I've watched a lot of terrible fucking movies.
You gave this movie 3 stars on Letterboxd.
I gave this movie 3 stars because it adequately serviced a timeline plot. And I debated giving it 2.5 to 2 stars. I think I'm going to have to go back and be revisionist. I think in this instance, the more that I think about it, no, you know what? I'm not going to fucking recommend this movie. I will refute the shit out of this.
I think the more appropriate thing, John, would be to let Dixon live out the events that were happening while you were letterboxing it and have him go back and rate it with 2 stars.
Oh, okay, sure. Does that, I guess that timeline wise makes sense?
I don't know what that means.
Does that
Literally
mean-
living out the plot of this movie, but with letterbox.
But with I don't understand.
I don't know
but
what you're
I
talking
accept it and I endorse it. I think. Yeah, I would not recommend this movie. When this movie ended, I went, "Well, that was a fucking thing."
Yep.
And Sasha said pretty much the exact same thing.
Yep.
And then we went about our day, and I highly doubt, Sasha doesn't really remember a lot of the movies we watch, and I think this is going to be one of the ones that I'll never bring up, and she'll never remember.
Yep.
It's
I envy her.
the only thing that I would say, I'm not a fan of internet bullying or online mobs,
But
I think everybody out there who's listening to this
Oh
needs
my
to
God.
become a critic, officially licensed, so you can go on Rotten Tomatoes and really just level this down to the percentage it needs to be.
yeah.
Because you know what?
How do we get this down to 36%?
Yeah,
on Rotten
yeah.
Tomatoes?
We need enough people to do that, because let me tell you what, you're not just putting us in danger, you're putting our children in danger. Somebody could see that review and think this was a good movie, and they would watch that and waste a solid hour and 26 minutes.
The future of mankind is at stake.
You're risking our most precious natural resource next to natural gas and oil, which
Not water.
Which is not water. Our
No.
children. It's our obviously.
Oh, wait. Natural gas, oil, and banks.
Yes, that's right. Oh yeah. Of course. Sorry.
And
Hold on,
moderate
let
to
me-
large-sized banks.
I need to sift back through my GOP PAC talking points. But yeah, I would refute this movie. I would refute it with every fiber of my being, and it's really hard for me to do that. And everybody knows I sit on the fence a lot. And
Yeah.
I really go to bat for movies that kind of suck.
You do.
This one, I'm not going to do that for.
Yeah. Funniest moment, John, was literally the thing you texted me about. Was when I saw that one of the producers' names was Mark Damon and was transported.
He fucking knew.
I was like, it's Tommy fucking Wiseau.
Oh,
Thinking
my
that it's
God.
Matt Damon, but it's Mark Damon.
That was great.
That's so good.
Yeah, that got me, and it wasn't the movie that was trying to do it. Yeah.
Dixon.
Yeah,
about you?
I would definitely not recommend this movie. If I had a time machine to go back in time, I would take over the production of this movie and just make a movie centered around Patrick Swayze and Barbara Hershey, and just have that play out and see where that goes. And
11-14 by A24, starring Patrick Swayze.
we're gonna
Hershey?
get rid of Colin Hanks entirely. We're gonna probably get rid of the denim jacket dude, and just insert Barbara Hershey into more scenes to fuck shit up and make things go insane.
I kept
Yeah.
thinking Denim Jacket Dude was Chris O'Donnell. I don't know why, but
He
I kept
kind of
thinking-
looks like.
I was
yeah.
like, oh, Batman and Robin. He was very, very prestigious, like pedigree here.
I'm pretty sure I've never seen that guy in anything before. I don't know what he did with his acting career, but
I hope he's out there
didn't
doing
love it
better
in this
things.
movie.
I hope he's out there doing better things. That's all
Yeah.
I can say.
Maybe
Yeah.
he has like
Positive.
a prominent Broadway career now or something.
Yeah, sure. Doing this on stage.
Yeah.
1114, the stage play.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I think the thing that kind of encapsulates this film is just that it's a perfect example of how you can have just immeasurable talent across the board and just fucking squander it if you don't have a good script
Yes.
and good direction.
Mhm.
Yep. Student film scripts, man, they can fucking ruin you.
Yep.
Even if you're a great director or a great actor, that script is pretty also the direction obviously will fund it too, but
Mhm.
that script is also key. You need to know your characters. You need to do this. And if you're not going to know your characters, you need to give us some better tells of how fucking awful they are, and also tell the audience in a way that's not like, hey, dummy, that you can hate these characters. It's perfectly okay. That would be nice. I was so mixed on it the entire time.
Yeah.
I just don't care.
I'll just end it by saying that I think, like I mentioned earlier, that I think these types of movies are best when they show the same event from different perspectives and show the event play out differently to show how each character is perceiving it.
Yeah.
And like, I think The Last Duel is an incredible film that no one saw. And like, it's Ridley Scott, Adam Driver, Matt Damon. It's really good. And so like, if that kind of premise is interesting to you, oh, what if they show the same event through different perspectives or different things leading up to it? Check that movie out. It's great. Don't watch 1114.
I would
Yeah,
also
no.
say, feel free to check out Rashomon, or
Yeah.
even Hero is another one that I don't think many people talk about with Jet
Yeah,
Li.
Jet
that
Li,
one's
that
pretty
was
solid.
Oh,
fucking
I haven't seen that
awesome.
one.
It's a little long pacing wise, but it's still really good. I would recommend it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole color palette they do in that movie
yes,
is amazing.
that's mainly it. Like
And
there's a lot of good visual shit.
Yeah, and if you're
Hmm.
gonna go with the visuals too, another movie I would recommend that might be a little better than this
Pile it
does some
on.
amazing visuals. And again, I mean, my obviously my stock here is lower, but I would recommend the thief, the cook. It's the cook, the thief, his wife, and her lover.
I've
Okay.
heard great things about that. I haven't
Yeah.
seen it. I actually just ordered that Blu-ray and I haven't gotten it yet.
Ah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it is a pretty remarkable film. I watched it my freshman year in college, and like visually stunning, and the plot is not terrible either. Yeah, so highly
Nice.
recommend. Don't recommend this movie. It is basically like a warm cup of coffee that you've left on the desk for a couple of days, and you drink it thinking it is your fresh cup of iced or hot coffee.
Why is it warm?
Well, I
The
guess
sun?
it's I mean, yeah, pretty much the sun and just ambient temperature.
Has
Okay.
baked
Okay.
it out. Sure, why not? Lukewarm.
Tepid coffee.
Before we fully close out, I want to say one more thing, which is if you have treatments for 1114, send them to our email. I would love to read. Send it directly to me, John at afterthoughts.media. That's my email. You can just send your ideas over to me. Let me know if I had good shit to say.
If
about
you
this.
send John treatments for this, he will write a script and try to make it.
I'll fucking
So
try.
Be
my
careful.
Best. I will get Chet
Yeah.
Hanks this time, not Colin Hanks.
You don't even need to do that. You sent me that video the other day. We could get fucking AI to do all of this. We
It's
could literally
true.
just remake this movie with AI, and it would probably fucking be better.
Cool. I think that about wraps us up. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Afterthoughts. I am your host, Michael Dixon. With me, our esteemed guest.
Or given the reception to this movie, not so esteemed guest, Mark Garcia.
And as always,
John Garcia. Yeah, everybody, seriously, stop reading this fucking movie, please.
Hi, my name is Mark Garcia. I used to be successful at a lot of things, but then one day I was exposed to 1114. It made me lose my family, my friends, and everyone I cared about. Don't lose your loved ones. Don't let yourself be impacted by 1114. If you or someone you know has been exposed to 1114, contact Poison Control immediately. The number is on our website. Thank you.
Hey there, movie buffs, TV toughs, and all listeners in between. John here from the Afterthoughts podcast. I just wanted to drop in at the end of this episode and say thanks for listening. If you've got afterthoughts of your own to share, hit us up. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Afterpod, or jump into a conversation on our Discord server. You can find info for this and more at theafterpod.transistor.fm. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Hi, it's 11:14. Do you know where your kids are? Chances are they're watching 11:14 or fucking dogs. Either way, you need to stop that shit right now. If you need help with treating your kids because they've been exposed to 11:14 or their fucking dogs, please contact our hotline at 555-55-55555. Was that enough fives?